Hey everyone! This season, I've been running a Thorns build on my Ritualist. The core of this build revolves around a ring from the recent 0.5 patch called Prized Pain, which gives a chance to trigger Thorns damage on hit. What makes the Ritualist so perfect for this is its unique ability to equip an extra ring, allowing us to easily push that trigger chance all the way up to 100%. The most important thing to know about triggering Thorns is that it completely ignores weapon damage and skill multipliers. Instead, it scales off how fast you can land melee hits. The higher your hit rate, the more Thorns damage you pump out. Initially, I tried using Spear Field to proc the damage, but I ran into a couple of issues. The hitboxes for the individual spears are just too small, and it feels pretty clunky against stationary targets. That sent me back to the drawing board to find a better skill setup. That's when I stumbled upon a really cool synergy, Volcanic Fissure paired with Stampede. Here's why this combo works so well. According to the tooltip for Volcanic Fissure, using a different slam on a molten fissure creates a spreading aftershock. When you pair this with the Jagged Ground 2 support, every single aftershock leaves behind Jagged Ground. Finally, by tying it all together with Stampede, the movement phase continuously triggers the molten fissure, and the final blow detonates all the Jagged Ground at once. This chain reaction deals a massive burst of damage, and that is the absolute core of this build. Let's break down the pros and cons of this build. Starting with the pros, the damage output is absolutely insane. It's very tanky, and best of all, it's incredibly budget friendly. You can easily put together a setup capable of farming tier 15 maps safely for under 30 Exalts, mainly because most of the required gear consists of 1 Exalt uniques. Moving on to the cons, because the build generates a massive number of hit calculations on screen, it can cause severe lag and turn into a bit of a PC melter. It also requires a 2-button playstyle, meaning you have to alternate between your skills, and it can be a bit annoying to play against highly mobile targets that move around a lot. Key thing to remember about Prized Pain is that every single melee attack has a chance to trigger Thorns damage. This means flat weapon damage is completely useless for us. Your absolute top priority is attack speed. The same logic applies to your skill selection. Your main goal is to stack high attack speed and movement speed so you can spam Stampede as fast as possible. Volcanic Fissure is our primary damage dealer here, pumping out massive Thorns damage through the endless pools of Jagged Ground it creates. One interesting thing to note, increased area of effect doesn't seem to extend the length of the fissure itself, but it does scale the size of the Jagged Ground patches. This means scaling your AoE allows the detonated Jagged Grounds to overlap much better, drastically multiplying your burst damage. As a nice bonus, besides Volcanic Fissure, you can also run Forge Hammer paired with a Warcry. This setup generates even more Jagged Ground, pushing your damage output even higher. There's a small detail here that we need to talk about, something that actually took me quite a bit of testing to figure out. While Volcanic Fissure looks like the primary damage dealer, that's not entirely accurate. In reality, the bulk of the damage comes from Stampede detonating the Jagged Ground. Because of this, when you're setting up your skills, if you put Volcanic Fissure on set 1 and Stampede on set 2, your scaling priorities should be different. For set 1, you should focus heavily on area of effect, skill duration, and slam aftershock. For set 2, your main priorities should be movement speed, Thorns damage, and any other global damage multipliers. You can check out the exact breakdown of the passive tree in the link below. Let's go over the defensive mechanics. As you can see from the screenshot, I'm running with over 4,000 HP and a solid 50% block chance, and massive armor. First, Scavenge Plate gives us a 40% more armor multiplier. Next, the helmet scales our defense even further by granting extra armor based on the life we've recently lost from hits. To top it all off, this belt, Gore Girdle, lets us defend with 200% of our armor, effectively doubling our mitigation. I end up with over 100k effective armor against physical damage, and an insane 200k plus armor applying to elemental damage. Basically, only few attacks in the game can instantly kill you. On top of that, as a Ritualist, the lower our health drops, the faster we recover. Our sustain comes from 3 major sources: 10% life leech from our Thorns damage, recoup from the amulet, and the consecrated ground generated by Stampede. Together, these layers provide a massive amount of passive recovery that allows you to easily handle various maps. Now, let's talk about the leveling process. I highly recommend sticking with the standard Twister build for leveling. since the core ring, Prized Pain, has a level requirement of 48. Twister is absolutely your best bet early on. It has incredible clearing speed and is super strong for league starting. I wouldn't suggest switching over to Thorns until you've accumulated enough flat Thorns damage on your gear. Once you hit level 48 and swap the ring in, that's your cue to switch over to the skill setup I mentioned earlier. The base damage for Thorns mostly scales off your scavenged plate, which means having a reliable way to shred enemy armor is crucial. You can easily solve this by using Desecrate with a one-handed mace. This setup boosts your damage while applying armor shred. Once you have that running, you'll be able to smoothly breeze through the rest of the campaign. As you can see, with our current damage, the boss gets instantly melted the second it spawns.
You seem to enjoy that.
Let's take a quick look at the skills. We have Blood Boil from the Ritualist tree, which doesn't do a whole lot for our specific setup. Next up is Harbinger's Madness coming from our weapon, which is helping us break enemy armor. Now for the main skills, Volcanic Fissure. We have it linked with Jagged Ground 2, Aftershock, Upheaval, and Encroaching Ground, which allows us to create massive patches of jagged ground. We also add Rapid Attack to boost our skill speed. We can actually just use a tier 3 version here, since we don't care about the less damage modifier on the skill itself. Stampede is linked with Cadence and Rapid Attack to boost our attack speed, along with Holy Descent for extra survivability. I currently have it linked to Shocking Leap to create shocked ground. However, our crit chance is sitting at only 10%, which isn't quite high enough to reliably trigger it. Instead, you can easily replace it with Crater or Bramble Slam, both of which will trigger our Thorns. Forge Hammer functions quite similarly to Volcanic Fissure. We can utilize a new skill called Animus Splinters to create a clone of ourselves. This clone will actually cast Stampede for us, allowing us to trigger even more jagged ground explosions across the battlefield. Now, let's talk about gear. The gear for this build is actually pretty unique because it utilizes a ton of cheap, budget-friendly uniques that you can pick up for around 1 Exalt each. Because we're stacking so many uniques, resistances can normally be a nightmare, but we completely bypass that problem by running a Veil of the Night helmet, which allows us to completely ignore our resistances. For our chest piece, the brass dome provides us with a mountain of defenses and thorns. Our rings and accessory slots are the absolute core of the build. We run 3 copies of Prized Pain to give us a 100% chance to trigger thorns. For the belt, we go with Gore Girdle, and for the boots, we use Briar Patch for that sweet 25% thorn critical strike chance. Honestly, these items are practically best in slot. At most, you just want to corrupt them for a few extra implicits. For the gloves, you can grab a pair of Dreadfist for a cheap, high damage option, or just settle for a rare pair to squeeze out more defenses, and the armor applies to elemental damage modifier. As for our shield, we're looking for armor applies to elemental damage and chaos resistance. Thanks to a new mechanic this season called Void Flux, you can roll 2 elemental resistance mods on your shield and have them convert straight into chaos res. Putting this entire gear set together is incredibly cheap, costing less than 30 Exalts for the budget version. Even if you min-max and go for high-end corruptions, it top out at around 1 to 3 divine orbs. Spending any more than that honestly isn't necessary. Next, let's dive into the passive tree. The key highlight here revolves around our A and B skill sets. For our Volcanic Fissure set, we are prioritizing increased area of effect, duration, and a higher chance to trigger aftershocks. On the other hand, our Stampede set focuses purely on boosting our damage and movement speed. When it comes to jewels, you'll want to look for stats that increase your defenses and thorn damage. Even the top tier jewels are going for around few Exalt. Once you accumulate more currency, you can min-max by searching for a Heart of the Well jewel that rolls with double thorn modifiers. Also, a quick pro tip. I personally think going for a Scavenge Plating plus 3 jewel socket setup is a total bait. This season, diamond jewels offer way better performance at the exact same price point. Finally, make sure to pick up an Undying Hate jewel for that crucial damage reduction. Just remember to look for the one with the Aminamu modifier. Here, I will quickly break down the playstyle and skill rotation. For general mapping, it's simple. You basically just alternate between Volcanic Fissure and Stampede to zoom through and clear packs along the way. When it comes to bossing, your rotation changes a bit. First, drop a Forge Hammer, detonated it with your war cry, follow up with 3 volcanic fissures, and then hit them with a stampede. If the boss has a long animation phase, you can drop another Forge Hammer for another detonation, since Forge Hammer caps out at 10 fissures. Alternatively, you can stampede once and just keep looping volcanic fissure. As long as you keep refreshing the jagged ground, the detonation chain will never stop. Because of this synergy, there's actually a really flashy, hidden mechanic you can pull off. It's not the most practical thing in the world, but it looks amazing. Check this out on the screen. Alright, let's see how this build performs against the map boss. We're dropping the Forge Hammer, popping the war cries, hitting the volcanic fissures, and boom! Absolute melt. Look at that DPS. And yep, we died too. If you enjoyed this build guide, make sure to leave a like and I'll see you guys in the next one. Hopefully alive.